YouTube, what's going on? And I told y'all I'll be right back with some fire. Now, this is part 2 of the Boobie gang out in Miami. Now, shout out to the whole Florida. Now, I didn't know Miami was carrying it like this. Now, part 1, man, that joint had me a little shook, man. All that K-fire. But, you know, just to recap of part 1, it's about the come up of Kenneth Williams. Now, this early hustle was really just stick up to home invasions. He looked into getting in touch with the game, and he noticed that the Meshbox Projects not only being very lucrative, but it was being controlled by a square. Now he would eventually win the war, and the projects would be all his. Now he would become very confident that he would do it again. Now in part 1, we discussed who was his primary connect and where his supply was coming from. He heard about the Thomas family making noise not only in Miami, but in Virginia. Boobie wanted to challenge them, and he damn sure did. He wanted to strong arm his way to the top, causing a war with the Thomas family in 2 different states, which is Florida and Virginia, with at least 10 shootings, with at least 3 of them involving the same weapon. Now, if you missed part 1, stop this video right now and go tune in and come right back to this. Now, with taking over Matchbox Projects and getting the Thomas family out the way, that victorious and invincible feeling had Boobie feeling like the king of the world. Winning the war against the Thomas family caused him to expand and become very powerful. The war against the Thomas family had ups and downs, wins and losses. He lost a good amount of soldiers, and he would pay for funeral services, promising revenge to the families. Boobie and the Thomas brothers had a childhood relationship as friends, but this wasn't any child's play, and they didn't owe each other nothing. He also met his man E4 while he was in juvie. But unlike the Thomas, E4 would join forces with Boobie on a journey to take over Miami. All the money he was getting, of course, he had to spend it. Boobie was a high roller, betting tens of thousands at dice games and on pool. He would be seen very often in Vegas at prize fights. He knew Mike Tyson personally, but that's no surprise, knowing that Mike Tyson was close to a lot of gangsters. Now, Boobie also had a relationship with Tupac and was in Vegas the night of the incident. In 1995, Matchbox Projects were demolished, which was a major loss for Boobie. Not only was this his first love, but it was the main base. Now, before anything, him and his crew was named after Matchbox. Now, the many people that was living there was loyal to him, was forced onto other housing projects. He knew a lot of money would be lost, so he had to acquire some new territory. His first thoughts was to pit some men out in Opelika, which had Ricky Brown Lee running things. Ricky filled most of the void when Isaac Hicks was no longer in the picture. Now, Ricky was credited the creator of the 8-ball, so he would have something affordable to all the customers, selling them for 50 a pop, and people copped even if they had to put their money together. He controlled a 9-block area in Opelika called the Triangle that was doing great numbers. Now, Boobie knew how Ricky was carrying it, and that wouldn't be a good idea, and definitely wouldn't be worth the headache, so he passed. Now, there was a lot of traffic on Liberty Square Pork and Beans Projects, which was the most violent housing projects in Dade County. Boobie would put some men out there to see if it was sweet or not. Weed, bass, and blow, get in and go. John Doe boys had pork and beans on lock. Before John Doe, it was Lynch Mob out 61st. Michael Dew was running things. They used to move out deep in army fatigue gear. They began to create the solid structure based on brotherhood, protecting their own and getting to $1, which it was plenty of it. It was plenty of money out in the streets of Liberty City. Now, we all know Boobie's strong arm game was crazy in the streets. Now, John Doe, they was housing shit. Now, let them find out you had a spot that was jumping and doing numbers and you couldn't hold it down like you were supposed to. They was coming for that. Them bulls were just too deep. They eventually built a feared reputation because of the young bulls. Man, you had young bulls that was 14, 15, 16 with lieutenant positions, and them young bulls was putting in all the work. They wasn't even crash dummies either, like these young boys out here today. Cause just like I said, they had lieutenant positions. It wasn't really no fighting going on. Before you know it, John Doe became a $50,000 a day organization. Now, Boobie knew he had to come packing, and it was only a matter of time we had to bring those Ks out. Now, Boobie usually purchases AKs from a Russian that owns a strip club in Orlando. He had other things to focus on, so he assigned his man Ortega to be responsible for the organization's firepower. So he would frequently visit gun shows and pawn shops between Virginia and Miami. Now, Boobie tried the same method he used on the Thomas boys and sent some guys out in a couple of areas that John Doe had on lock. Now, that wasn't a good idea as they were sent back. Like, why would you even try that BS on 62nd and 15th Ave? Like, anything sold around there, damn sure better have that John Doe stamp on it. Boobie gang was surprised on how them young boys was moving. Now, John Doe wasn't having it, and they was ready to turn over on anybody when it came to that money. They even had fallouts with each other about control on different spots. Now, it was a hot Miami night, and Studio 183 had the fly chicks and the players in the building. Now, some men from John Doe gang spotted a couple members from Boobie gang, and the mean mugs and stares started. Each side had their tools on them, but, they were saving all the smoke for the parking lot. Now, close to the end of the night, both sides exchanged fire, leaving men on both sides critically wounded. Now, this was bad on both sides because even though it was two different sets, you had men from each side that had good relationships, so it had to get handled. A bunch of phone calls went out and the streets was talking. Boobie and Bud decided to meet up for a conversation and decided to put the BS to the side. See, it wasn't a big war, it was a small conflict. It really depends who you ask. Some people might say it didn't happen because they never heard of it happening. But if nothing happened, where did it all come from? And why is there multiple people asking about it? After this video played Rick Ross' White House, he said, let me think back to 96 where Boobie had the real feeling like a Now, come on now. Now, who was he talking about? Now, let me know in the comments who you think he was talking about, because this sounds like a diss. Now, Boobie really didn't need that territory, and losing soldiers wasn't really worth it. And Bud wasn't really giving it up like that anyway, but it was enough violence going on. The streets was already hot, but, both men agreed to stay out of each other's way. And I heard a lot of people say that they didn't call themselves Boobie Boys. Of course, the media gave these organizations their names, but majority of the people know them as Boobie Boys, so that's how we're going to identify them. But anyway, around that time, the feds had an investigation going on called Operation Boobie Trap. They wanted to stop Miami violence so bad, they identified the main players of the groups and would dig up old charges to identify the worst members and would try to get them off the streets and have them sit with traffic violations and misdemeanors. They looked up all the high-ranking members of Boobie gang, and they all had gun charges and robberies and all types of stuff. So if Boobie and two others would be riding around in the well and get stopped, the cop would run their jacks and the police would say, listen, it's 3 of y'all, and between all 3 of y'all, there's 5 gun cases. So I know there's a gun somewhere in here. So they had ripped the whole car apart, and they won't find anything because, they had the special hidden compartments, But anyway, stay tuned to part 3. When I say it's going to get dark, I might not even think about turning my monetization on. You see this face right here? Now, behind this beauty is a war involving 52 people shot, 35 deaths. YouTube, let's get it. Turn my notifications on so you don't miss out. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the comments, get the likes up. And I'll see y'all next video, man. I'm out.